April shared while we were waiting for people to gather, something about the pulling weeds.
Yeah, that, this stuff brings up, of course, old things, and I can't identify them all. I don't know where they came from, but I know they're related. So I just pulled them out like weeds and got all these roots, and just pulled them out, threw them in the compost.
So there's this fun little thing that I opened the 1887 book. I knew that the idea of sin in general did not appeal to her. This is that young woman who was coming to her for treatment. By that particular feeling that came to me, and I denied that she had inherited any of these characteristics or their consequences. But this is what it opened to. Did you ever pull up a little plant by the roots?
Wow.
There it is.
I could almost hear the coming up by the roots. There was a strange feeling of something coming up by the roots. I can almost hear the coming. I thought you would enjoy that.
Thank you.
All right, cool. I'll close this now so I don't
It's
have it.
very satisfying.
Yay! All right, so it is Thursday, and Thursday afternoon is lesson 10, week after week after week. And many, many, many people really, really love Thursdays because lesson 4 and lesson 10 can be very satisfying. I mean, in lesson 4, what did we learn? We learned that faith is confidence to command. It's recognizing that I am so full of trust and understanding and acceptance that there's no question. Well, of course it's going to happen because it's going to happen, right? I declare it, and it is so. And if you may recall, we did a little bit with Emma about the I becomes the I decree, right? And that's part of what she's saying. We're moving into that space where when we say it is, that's our experience. And I remember there was a stage in Werner Erhardt's life when he was doing so many of his trainings all over the world. And he got to the point where people would say, well, be prepared for whatever. And he'd say, no, it's going to be like bingo. And it was, whatever it was that he named it. The weather's going to be fine. No, there'll be plenty of that there. Oh, we'll have 257 people there. And that's what was happening. So, you see clearly, and I'm delighted.
Yay!
Read, I am realistic, I expect miracles.
Oh, wow.
And I heard that this morning, and I heard that it was from Dr. Wayne Dwyer.
Wayne Dyer is one of them. Yeah, that's right on. Yeah, Jennifer put this together, pulling together as many quotes as she could around miracles. Yeah, it was lovely. All right, so let's look at lesson 10. Effectiveness. And she couples that with freedom from fear. Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you were just saying, isn't it? Yes. All right, the 10th lesson of science applies the principle of the fourth lesson. Mind will demonstrate as much truth as it has courage to stand by its affirmations. Courage to stand by what it is declared to be so. Wow. That's how much we will experience in our environment. So now we're going to take this and apply it to our environment. This lesson gives us the gift of skill in handling things with our thoughts, so they record our thoughts perfectly. Now, that is a positive and not so necessarily positive experience. So the discipline over and over again is, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? What are the feelings that are along with my thinking? That is really the discipline. So its axiom is similar. The world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming that the world is. Okay? Huge. We made all kinds of decisions about what the world is like, what we are like, what other people are like, what we're supposed to be doing when we were very tiny. And we've been living out of that, affirming what we've been persisting in affirming the world is like that all of our lives. So as we undo those affirmations and dissolve those ideas, we are negating the idea, not the circumstance. Okay, so I'm not going to negate that the sky's gray, but I might negate the possibility that weather would not be supportive of our well-being. That's an idea I don't want. I'm not going to negate the sky being gray, but I would negate the idea that weather is not supporting my well-being or our well-being. Okay?
So negate the circumstance.
Negate the idea,
Idea.
not the circumstance. And I
Not
think
the
that may be what will help you. You don't need to negate or dissolve or deny anything you see or experience. You want to negate or dissolve the idea out of which that experience may be happening or shaping that experience. Personally, I'm delighted we got some cloud cover, and I'm looking forward to some rain, because this part of the planet needs rain. And there are people who are just going, oh, the weather turned so bad today. No.
It's turned good.
Yeah. I remember when my daughter was living in LA, it rained once every 3 or 4 years. And she came back and she says, I figured it out. I'm a pluviophile. A rain lover. A bibliophile, yeah, a pluviophile.
That's a good one.
All right. So let's move forward with this concept. With skill, next paragraph, an instrument records perfectly the joy of the master musician by vibrating at the touch of his fingers, and she talks about Paganini, which is her epic, her era. So, we all know when we've heard a master musician play, we can be that master, right? Yeah, that's what she's helping us to go. And in the third paragraph, everything you do must, by its very nature, have its clear process that shows others how to do likewise. So that's part of why she has divided it up and worked with these lessons to help us to see, first you do this, and then you do this, and then this can happen, which allows this, and then this happens, and then that allows this, right? And if I'm going to be a master silversmith, I need to be able to sit down with an apprentice who's never picked up any of this and help them step by step become a master. And that's what she is saying lesson 10 helps us get to. The number 10, the next paragraph, is a beginning in fullness. So this 10th lesson teaches us to start over again at our hidden memra, our secret self, and sound our song forth, singing with the choirs of the biblical revelation, okay? So we started at the outer, and now we're starting at the inner. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. If we have, in the last paragraph, if we have discovered how to be joyous and grateful here on earth, which sometimes seems so dark and unreliable, if we have learned to smile and praise when there was nothing seemingly to smile or be grateful about, there will come a moment where everything we're able to do, we can teach others to do. All right? So did you notice there is no apparent connection between the ability to teach others and what we need to do? Right? If we can maintain our joyful appreciation of what is, others will be able to learn from us. If we're focused on you have to do it this way, and then this way, and then this way, and this way, they may never be able to learn from us. Isn't that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. And the top line of the next page explains why the risen Jesus said that the Holy Spirit would teach us all things. Men have studied books and languages, machines, and all creation, but they have not practiced learning from the Holy Spirit. When we are joyful, we are feeling the presence, and the presence is the Holy Spirit. Right? So that's why when we are choosing joy, choosing to experience joy, then the ability to teach happens through us, because it's that's the Spirit that's actually doing the teaching. All right. And she gives another way to talk about it in the last sentence of that paragraph: the silent language of wordless knowing deep within us comes to our speech. So this second part of the book is about the world around us. So we're going to do Shaping the World. and this is one of the most profound sentences in the book, conditions and objects and people around us are the records now of the way we have thought and spoken in the past, and how we're thinking and speaking now. All right. Everything and everyone is as good to us as we have been to it or them. Ye shall reap as ye have sown. They record our skill. They tell of our ability to put our soul's life into words. They tell of our ability to discard appearance and recognize reality. That should be a capital R, reality. While we are thinking, speaking, and writing. And we're back to that. I think this, I speak this, I write this. Can you accept this without the sense of blame or shame?
That's a good one.
Maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That, good, I'm delighted. Yeah, if I look at my situation in this moment, right this moment, the health, the finances, the relationships, the work, the place, the everything, it is the product of the last years, and particularly the last 3 weeks, of thinking. Not of anything I've done. Very little that I've said, except as it reflects what I'm actually thinking. Okay? Now, if I can accept that, and then not, if there's an issue, go, oh, you should have done it that way, right? That's where the blame and shame comes in, the idea that what is now is not perfect. So that gets me back to my little story about when something happened to my body and I found myself in a facility where there were people there, and there was no indication in my awareness of my having brought that forth. That circumstance as a whatever was going on with the body was not what was brought forth. What was brought forth was an opportunity to teach. And that's where my thinking had brought me to that experience. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yeah.
Sometimes
Anyway.
when you, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sometimes when you point out something, like, well, you know, I'm talking about something, well, you know, blah, 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 then my mind does go to the blame and shame, you know, it's like, oh,
It's
I'm doing it
deeply
wrong,
conditioned
or-
in most of us. Right?
Yeah, that comes up like a bang.
mhm.
And so that's why I've been sticking with the forgiveness thing, because it seems to me I have a lot, or I had a lot, it's much less, to forgive.
You know, once we begin to get that we're the ones that
Right.
need to forgive ourselves, because it's nothing up there,
Right,
nothing
right.
around us needs to forgive us, right? The Holy Spirit, the universe, the center within us, none of them condemn us. That was lesson 9, right? There is no condemnation, no accusation. There is nothing out there ever condemning us. So getting to that place where we can feel and know forgiveness not only is, it's not even necessary anymore, is the goal we're aiming for. And so if something is emerging that doesn't feel like heaven, what are the beliefs and thoughts that have brought me to this moment? If I can't see any, then what is this situation opening up into that I have claimed, that I have called for? Yeah? Yeah.
I'm finding that when I have the feeling that I could have done something differently or better or whatever, I start expressing gratitude for the lesson. Because there's no need to condemn myself.
Yay! That's a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's something that's evolved since we started going through Emma again. Is that I'm finding I'm going many, 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 many days without feeling any guilt
Wow.
about something I've said or done or
Wow.
that kind of thing.
Yay!
But when it comes up, when something does come to mind, it's like I'm not condemning myself and going down that slide downhill.
Nice.
I'm just saying, thank you, lesson learned.
Uh-huh. Excellent. Wonderful. Marvelous. Thank you. So, part of what this does is it makes it so we accept that we are not victims of anything, right? And it also says, if I want different conditions, I know where to look.
There is a line in a movie, Working Girl, with Melanie Griffith, and he proposes to her in front of everybody, and she says maybe, and he said, what kind of an answer is maybe? And she said, if you want a different answer, ask a different girl.
Woohoo! I'd forgotten that one. Got it. Yes.
I have something, this is just something that I work on, not looking at life as lessons. Just for me, it's awarenesses, because lessons seem, oh, this is my life lesson. Punitive thing, And that can just be,
I'm guessing you went through a time where lessons was the way you got out of being guilty about things, though.
oh, I'm sure I did.
Right.
Along,
And now
yes,
you're
yes,
moving
yes.
on
Now
from
I
there.
want to, I just,
Got
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And again, that's nothing about how you look at life lessons. I just, when I think of a life lesson, then I start, oh, no, I don't have to judge myself like that.
So we all have different kinds
Yes,
of
yes, like Samantha,
connotations
yes,
with this,
yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Right. So to recognize that who we are becoming is a function of not only what we have been and done, but what we are accepting in the moment and what we are opening ourselves to in the moment. So to be appreciative for the moment as something that is guiding me to something else, to be appreciative for the moment as something that is opening me to something else is basically the same thing, but different kinds of language around it. And isn't that marvelous?
And different feelings.
And different
around-
feelings about the
feelings
language,
around it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if, and that's part of why Emma says, these aren't the words that work for you. If they don't get you to that place of feeling the power, find words that work. And my experience is they do change over time.
Right.
Now, for me, lesson is equals growth.
I got that, yeah.
And it's a very positive thing.
Absolutely.
And
I'm sure
so-
it does,
Yeah. And yet I know where you're coming from, because I had a mother that drove the lessons home real well.
Yeah. Excellent. We're making progress, and I love it. All right, I want to go to the third paragraph on this page, and this can push some buttons. All the world, including our close family relations, are good beyond good.
Yes.
If we use the good mind in us, how can we help seeing the truth of the world? Let the mind see the good, step by step. So that's, you may not be able to get there in a big leap. From mountain peak to mountain peak, let these lofty ideas spring till the 12 gates of truth are opened, and our conscious, wide-awake thoughts, never off guard, smile and rejoice that our obedient world may at last be compelled to return our smile. All right.
That's a nice.
Isn't that lovely?
That is nice.
Yeah. And then she says something that is very important in this world today. Gentleness, love, cheerfulness, these may seem to slow to conquer the world, but they have deity in all its force behind them. Any one idea of good held in mind is a deathless seed. If it is in mind, it is in your body and affairs also, for what you are thinking about is surely apparent in your surroundings. All right. Second paragraph on the next page. When we think new and joyous thoughts of people, of things, of life, they begin to respond to our thoughts. The joyousness you've persisted in has recorded itself in them. I've worked with a lot of people from a lot of backgrounds, and one of them has been people who are in a committed Christian, evangelical Pentecostal environment, and they're in abusive marriages. And the pastor tells them to focus on the Bible and go home.
And stay.
Yeah, and stay in the marriage. Yeah. And so part of what I have treated for and supported in is exactly what's happening in this situation, this set of words, okay? Nobody is going to change the abusive situation except this understanding. The more loving, joyful, powerfully present the partner that's being abused can be, the more anger comes up and then is dissolved. Initially, it's very intense. How dare you, right? And then, as one persists in this loving, joyful, I love you no matter what, from the strength, from the power of that, not from, oh, I love you, don't do this. It's a whole different thing, right? But, that then has led to transformations in the abusive one over and over and over again. It's fascinating. And they do it within the context of, Jesus and all of that, which not everyone can do. But it's the same process, whether it's, you're calling that power of Jesus, whether you're calling that power of Christ, whether you're calling that power Holy Spirit, or you're calling it Om or Ram or Ta or, anybody else, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to get that to yeah.
Okay. So some of us have had it in somewhat less intense environments, not in our families, but maybe in the workplace. I know you've had a little bit of turnaround in a workplace or two. And, where we make a commitment to show up and be the best we can be and as loving and supportive as we can, and the place begins to adjust itself to that. Yeah, we've had some of that. And that's kind of what we're talking about here.
But we got our daughter out of that situation.
The abusive
There's-
situation, yeah. And I would, if it were not within the context of being told they can't leave, I'd say, let's get out of here, We can always fix this from a distance.
Yeah.
But, given that they have the absolute conviction that it's not possible to leave, then we do this. And the pastors are always very supportive. I've never had any pastor be upset with me for working with them in that way, so that's kind of fun. I've had them get concerned about other things I do, but. All right, so I skipped over what Moses said, let the earth bring forth cattle, etc. But if we go up to the top of the next page, she's modifying it. So today, Moses would say, top of 143, stand here and see your mighty principle carried out in your governments, churches, schools, homes, friends, family life, and into your daily tasks, eating, drinking, and sleeping. Let everything that has breath or moves sing praise to the Lord within us all. All right. So for those of you who attended the issues analysis thing we did last week, this is the essence of what we who are doing this practice can know and be and do. Okay? Then all of our actions come from that. Not everyone who came to that event is going to be able to see this and understand this, so of course I'm not going to lay it out in that environment. But, this is what makes the difference. It's not getting up and holding a sign that makes the difference, although that may be what I feel called to do in a particular situation, right? It's, it's not setting up plastics recycling company that makes the difference. It's knowing that the world is being transformed even as my thoughts are being transformed. It's knowing that there are people all over the world doing these wonderful things to live in a different way. It's seeing and reaffirming and praising all the ways that people are showing up in harmony with how the planet really wants to be. Right? That's what works. Then all the rest comes from that. Yeah?
And this is from God. I mean, that's being the God that we are.
Right on. That's right.
Yeah.
The I becomes the I decree.
Right.
I decree
Right.
that humanity is living in harmony with the Mother Earth.
Right.
I decree it, and I know that it is coming into my experience every moment of every day. And so it is.
So it is.
All right. So the next paragraph is a little more detail on this. When we think new and joyous thoughts of people, of things, life, they begin to respond to our thoughts. The joyousness you've persisted in, I'm at the top of 143. The joyousness you've persisted in has recorded itself in them and returns back to you, answers back to you as in a mirror. There's a wonderful little book called The Reflexive Universe, and it is about how the universe is showing us who and what we are being. And it is done so from a language of physics and systems theory. It's kind of fun.
What's it called?
The Reflexive Universe. So now she brings us to where most of us are, the third paragraph on 143. When one imagines there is a mixture of good and evil in the universe, he's sure to see a good deal of both. All right. So if he lets his mind balance on the gloomy side more than on the joyous side, he'll see more evil conditions than good. He will not touch the 10th lesson. He'll not see his world record joyousness. If he doesn't put joyousness forth from his mind as a steady stream into the world. Okay? So the one discipline in the world, the one discipline in our lives is, what am I thinking and feeling? And choosing the joy, and choosing the joy. I put together a little book that actually we still have to have a bunch. It was called Living with Spirit. And in it, it was a series of quotes that I used during the time that the body was being healed. And I kept finding interesting things, and I'd embellish them in my journals. And I took it to a woman who helped me create this sweet little book. And in it, it says, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of the Spirit. The Master always chooses joy. We always choose joy. It was very funny because someone was trying to sell this little book and took it into where he was sure they'd be very interested in it. It was a brand new little bookstore in Portland that was run by women, primarily for women, and they said, we will not have a book in here that has the word master.
We're running into exactly the same problem because the word master is in the Sufi invocation. And so in many instances it's being changed to mystery.
Mystery instead of, oh my goodness, oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Because that's not what it's supposed to be.
Well, there's three words that they put in there, and
I understand.
but it's it came up at one of the things, and
right, because we haven't lost what it was about. The apprentice becomes a journeyman and then masters the skills. Someone who has mastered the skill. That's who we're talking about. Wow, interesting. All right, so clearly we have had a mixture of good and evil in our thoughts because of this. This is an indicator. So maybe we need, this is an indicator that, each of us needs to be aware of the degree to which we feel like there's power issues and force issues in the world and people trying to, run other people's lives and such like that, so that it can be dissolved in our experience. How's that sound? All right. And then in the next paragraph on that section, she reminds us again, if spirit is the only substance, then matter is no substance. If holiness is the only present, sin cannot be present. If omniscience is omnipresent, there can be no ignorance. We must truly not see any faults in our neighbors, nor ignorance, nor foolishness hiding their innate wisdom. Okay? So I've gotten in the habit of when that person that is often referred to as the current occupant of the White House is in my awareness. What I've been seeing is the seed light glowing and glowing and glowing more and more through. The seed like
Oh, that seed
light
light? That
in the
lit?
heart. Yeah, and I've been watching it grow and expand. That's what I've been seeing almost every time I see that person. So that's been helping. All right, so in lesson 10, we're being called to stand in our mastery, to accept that we know how to do this. So the permanent healing is helping us do that. If we talk of healing the sick, we don't mean that there are sick people, but that we see people more and more nearly as they truly are. If we speak of casting out tempers or passions or demons as referred to in the Bible, we don't mean that there truly are demons or tempers or overwhelming passions, but that we see the Holy Spirit in each person instead of such things. There is no death. We see life where others believe in death. So I was in the ER with this woman who had been 24 hours on her bed since the stroke. And I was called to her side and I'm going, that's not a woman who was in 24 hours in a stroke. There was no depletion of energy. That life energy in that woman was in every cell of her body. There was no depletion. And so knowing that, yeah, I'm sure is part of what's going on, that there was no diminution here, right? So I've got, a grandson and a daughter just there in tears, they're dissolving, and I'm looking at this woman going, all her vitals are perfect. Her pulse is perfect, her heartbeat is perfect, her oxygen is perfect. There is no point, the only thing is she can't feel anything or move her left side, right? And it's fascinating to be in that place of knowing this truth, regardless of what everyone else is experiencing, right, or seeing.
Right, because the docs have told him that, she's on her way out.
Yeah, right. And everyone in the world tells you you've had this problem, and you had this. So it's been fascinating from that perspective. But that's what she's saying. When we there is no death, we see life where others are believing in death. We see this being well and seeing holy. We see this dog being able to run the trail regardless of what other people have said about him. We know inside us this is what's actually happening here, and we operate from that. So I held her hand and I stroked her face and I said, you are wonderful and I'm so glad I can be here. And she said, I'm glad you can be here. And then she went to sleep, into a deep healing sleep. And it was so beautiful, And we get to have that. All right, so the next page. To heal anyone, she says a man, to heal anyone of their mental formulations called disease, you simply disintegrate their accumulated ideas by true thoughts. Life is truth. Beauty is truth. Love is truth. Everything anyone does is saying, I love you, please love me. That is truth. Yes. All right. You reason those ideas right out of their minds. It's very much like ungluing them. I love that, ungluing the ideas, right? All right, then she says, in the process, there's always a little moment when it almost seems as if a person would not let their old ideas go. If at that moment you are true to your principles, stronger than ever, and ignore the conditions with more skill than ever, you will see him, them, her yield the false position without another struggle. Okay? And you don't have to say a word. Right? So she gives an example of what often happens. This is a very lame man. He's very excited. He's hadn't been able to walk properly in years, or even stand up, but he got so excited he jumped up and started making his point, and the whole room started laughing at him. And then he realized what had happened. He sat down lame again.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
oh no.
Right? Yeah. We humans are fun. All right, so I'm going to go down to if business at the bottom. If business troubles face you after you have treated faithfully 3 treatments, you certainly have been doubtful whether you could settle them by mental processes or not. Doubt is sure to haul a once lame business back into lameness again. You need to refuse the lameness. Don't touch it. Touch not the earth means to keep your eye on the highest truth. Yeah. So, yeah, often, business cycles are up and down. They've always been up and down. The trick that I've learned is if you've got multiple income streams, then when one is going up and down this way, the other one can go up and down opposite, right? And you can kind of even them out so that your overall got pretty well, right? And so I encourage that whenever I do any business consulting. And it is amazing because people want to hang on to this notion of business is going to go down, right? And I have to prove to them with the numbers that they're not, right? That overall, yes, that particular part may be going, down right now, but this other one's coming up, yeah. Right. And there's another one that I've been working closely with that's, sure, there hasn't been nearly enough cash, and then there's more than enough to cover bills. And how did that happen? Because their story is the cycle, there hasn't been enough, right? But there are enough different ways it's coming in that it's okay.
When our little business would have cash flow issues, we would sit and start telling each other market stories, all of the people we met, the fun we had, how they were, this person was receptive to a new product, and we just keep talking about all of the really neat things that we were able to do and have, and the phone would ring and it would be in order.
Yep, exactly, because that's the frame of your experience. Your experience is, we get so much out of this. Yeah. All right, let's go on. Say to your fears, down at the bottom, say to your fears if they keep facing you with what looks like disaster, I don't believe it. I don't believe that side of the question. I believe in success and prosperity for myself, for everything else, right? And the old conditions must unglue. The old conditions must unglue. We're going to come around to that again. All right, so our perfect gift. She talks about various, people, musicians and society people and, painters and all of those. And then second paragraph, Paul said, quote, every man has his proper gift of God, and told his helper Timothy to churn up that gift that was in him. In the same way, the thoughts brought forth by repeating the lessons of the science will stir up your own gift. They'll open a way for you to exercise that gift, and everything will yield to that gift stirred up in you. All right? We learned in an earlier lesson that the waters form the land once formed must take great and unusual force by the waters to change its shape and appearance. This metaphysical science teaches that the land of your being is your present conditions, your circumstances, may even be called your fate. So the waters of your mind must form your natural world. Whatever you've thought consciously, the conditions of your life must unresistingly record, right? So the gift is going to be shaped by all the thoughts of your mind, right? And she goes on in the next paragraph, at the height of your unique genius, every single one of us has a unique genius. There is something that nobody else in the world can be or do than what each one of us can be or do. And that's true for everybody in the world.
We're snowflakes.
We're snowflakes. I like to think of us as jigsaw puzzle pieces. The jigsaw is not complete without all of us in it, right? And each one of us is a unique shape that can only fit in one spot. And without that one spot, the whole isn't whole. So if I'm just, laying back and not being who I am and not sharing my gift, Coos Bay is the town where Prefontaine grew up and became a runner. And they have now created this big monument, this building-sized portraits of him, right? But the banner says, a gift partially given is wasted, I think is what he says. Yeah, a gift partially given, or it's not partially, but, given without fullness, not fully given, is wasted. Right? And that's why he ran, because his gift was running, right? And if he didn't do it fully, it was wasted. What an interesting thought, right? So each one of us has a unique gift, and in being that, and I'm going to point out that Prefontaine has become a role model. So in a town where there was no hope, he was the symbol that people could do well even there at that time. Yeah, that was his real gift. All right. So, at the height of your unique genius rests some masterpiece of splendor laid out for you to do from the beginning, before ever the world was. It is the making of your soul. Your own Christ character, whose glory rests ever in the center of your own being, manifesting in your world. And through this science, your mind is a greater work than Mendelssohn's. Okay. I know. So, yes. Right? So each and every one of us has one that is unfolding as we're doing this work. It becomes clearer and clearer, and we will find ourselves producing things that are far beyond anything that we ever thought was possible. And part of how we're going to do that is the next one. We're going to choose faith over doubt or fear.
Of course.
All right. So the first sentence is just, if you ever thought seriously about some great point in the science for a long time, you will experience its mighty effects. Just contemplating some of these ideas will lead to its effect. And she talks about the land and the water, even more. And then in the next paragraph, though true thought may seem sometimes to be long in accomplishing its mission, still our conscious thoughts get greater and greater power as we think them, till our whole earth falls apart. Falls apart. We don't believe in the old material ways of thinking anymore, so old conditions manufactured by our material thoughts have unglued, as they must, in order that our new conditions, formulated by our new way of thinking, may come forth. This is a huge turnaround point. Many people have a hard time with this one. This is one of the places that I get to be able to be there and say, it's okay. What you thought before created the system, the structure, the life that you were in. You are thinking differently now. There is no way that system, structure, life can be what it was. Something else entirely new must be happening. And so anything that is no longer supportive of your new way of thinking, there may be elements of the old that were, and they'll come along, but they'll be in different relations and different structures, right? And it may be relationships with people, it may be jobs, it may be, any number of things. But they do come unglued as we shift how we are thinking.
We used to vacation along the Central Coast for 3 weeks. I'd use my whole vacation and we'd come down here. And our daughter would usually fly in and we'd pick her up and bring her with us. And the first day that we would be at the coast, she would be sick, like flu sick. And Larry and I knew, and we told her, you're just losing your glue. She was so
Coming unglued.
stressed in her job and her life and that. And when she came here, there was no demands on her in any way. She could sleep as long as she wanted. She could eat what she wanted. Her life was really her own to make what she wanted. But all the glue that held her together in that other life was gone, and the body just gave it up. and in 24 hours, she would be fine for the entire rest of the vacation.
Lovely, lovely. How nice that it could happen that smoothly
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
clearly.
I did
Yeah.
that, but it took longer to get better.
Oh, right, when you
Worked a
retired.
whole year for my first week off. I was so sick. I couldn't eat dinners, and David sent me to the emergency room.
Oh, my
He
goodness.
says, "You're sick."
Oh, my goodness, yeah. I understand, yeah. Yeah, so the body can come unglued, also relationships, as it says, she says in here, that, at this point, friends may change amazingly, our home is transformed, our business falters, even appearing to fail. Because the business was built on the old ideas, right? So it has to fall apart so that a different kind of business can emerge, or a different source of income can emerge, or a different set of income streams. Okay, so this is the point of choice where our old beliefs about God come forth. It may seem as if our world all turns against us, but we have no right to agree with what appears around us. Whoa, is right. The Christ Spirit within us is shedding its radiance around us, and there's no combination so hard, so black, so complicated that God's Spirit cannot work a miracle in them. Whew. And I point out in the footnote, this is what it says in the Course. There's no order of difficulty in miracles. Right. Yeah, the miracle of the parking place is just as easy as the miracle of transforming the planet. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
We gotta work on that one, though.
Yeah, it's, our ideas are the only thing that get in the way, yeah. And that's why so much of that opening of the Course is, this table isn't really a table. It's something else. Isn't that interesting? My thoughts have created this table. So I can begin to recognize the relationship between my physical experience and my inner experience. Yeah. All right. So the top of the next page, no matter what part of our circumstances seems to be falling apart, there is a spiritual place, eternal, not materially thought, not materially born, but spiritually brought forth, now showing its seed, its face, through the ungluing particles of the old conditions. All right? So I have this drawing that I use a lot, and maybe I'll be able to pull it up before you go. That is, systems go along, and it's a figure eight. It's on the side. It's an infinity circle. And so we've got a seed, all right? And we plant the seed, and the seed is growing, and all is well, and we're nourishing the seed, and we begin to have a sense of what this really is, and then we start sharing it with people, and then other people get involved. Maybe this is a business, or maybe this is a tree. It really doesn't matter. Other animals and plants are getting involved, and it's growing stronger and stronger, and more structure, and all the policies are in place, and everything is in place, and it gets stronger and stronger and powerful, and in the meantime all these things are happening to it. There's rains and dries and illnesses and whatever going on, and it gets to a point where one of those things hits it. It is so intricately, so fully structured that it falls apart because it can't handle the same little thing that it used to handle just fine. Nobody here's had that experience. I used to be able to handle this just fine. Right, exactly. And it falls apart. It goes in, that is called a catastrophe. It's just a minor fluctuation in the environment, but it's a catastrophe because everything is no longer structured in the way it was, right? And it goes into chaos because there is no apparent structure in all of this. But in that chaos is the new seed. And then we go up to the next level.
So
right? And so to the extent to which we are focused backward on the old structure is the extent to which we prolong the chaos. The extent to which we are focusing forward on the new seed is the extent to which we reduce the intensity and duration of the chaos. That's all there is to it. So what is the new seed? And the new seed is always that shiny little object in the flames, in the ashes, you know, is that, oh, that was interesting. I wonder what that could become. And in that place of, I wonder what that could become, that's actually our most powerful creative state. I used to call it joyful, playful curiosity. That we're most likely to generate an experience out of that mode compared to anything else.
I did a workshop with a lady that took us through the Heart of Now exercises. And one of them, you paired up with another person, and one of you just constantly kept repeating the phrase, I have an idea that, and you have to finish that phrase. And as soon as you finish it, that first person says, I have an idea that, and you just keep repeating 5 minutes. And so you can do this, you can probably get 20 ideas out in a minute.
Yeah.
So you're looking at possibly
about
100. You're looking at about 100 of these ideas. And it's easy to come up with the first half dozen or dozen. But then it just keeps pushing you. And it's amazing how that makes you change your whole thought process about change and what has a possibility of happening. And I have an idea that.
Right, and the idea that can be something for the future. It can be, I have an idea that the world is like such and so, or I have an idea that people are such and so. And those are the ideas that we're ready to dissolve in most cases, but sometimes.
I have an idea that I can be happy all the time.
Woohoo! I like that idea. All right. So, again, in the next paragraph, whenever any disturbed condition arises, do not believe in it enough to notice it. Okay? All right? So, the stage B, that's the top of 147. The stage beyond negating and dissolving is you don't even notice it, right? Right? You don't have to dissolve it. You don't have to negate it. It isn't even it's something you pay attention to. And one of the things that I talk about as we release idea sets, you know, if our life is this process, so we're going around, we're having this experience and this experience and this experience and this experience, right? And some of you have heard this many times. Okay, we go along and we have these experiences, and every now and then one catches us and we just whirl around in it. Right? And something kicks us out of that, and if it's a healing thing that kicks us out of it, we get to go up to another level. And the next level is a little closer to the core, which is our light center, okay? But so we get to come around a little higher on this spiral, if you will. And, you know, we're going through these life processes and we come around, oh my God, I'm back here again. And if we've got a healing process, it kicks us out. We go up another layer. But it's a lot less time.
This sounds like the master controller in Tron.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So we keep, you know, we go around and we're having, and sometimes we get caught over here, right? Oh no, now I'm in here. And oh, what do I do now? And then we remember, oh, I did something back here. That worked. Okay, I'll try that. We get kicked out of it. And we keep going around and going around. And, you know, and in the meantime, the actual event that caused it is way out here, right? And we're getting closer and closer to the light. So by the time we get about here the 4th or 5th time, we go, oh, I remember when that used to be a problem, right? And then about the 8th time, we don't even notice it. And that's when we know we're done. All right? Yes. And that's what she's talking about.
Forward to that.
We get to the point we do not believe in it. That is, we do not even consider the possibility that it could ever happen. It's not even in our awareness that it could ever happen. It is so far outside of who we are now that we would not even, oh, I was like that once? Yeah, that's what we're talking about, all right? Okay, next paragraph. Sometimes when, quote, the earth comes unglued, unquote, after you've decided to put forth cheerfulness, the unbalanced and distracted state of your affairs may seem to make it impossible for you to hold your own in the midst of your seemingly disordered world. When the storms seem to come thickest, the peace of your soul is nearest. Did anyone see the videos of the drone someone had in the eye of Hurricane Dorian? Oh, it was like being in heaven. It was just like,
Really?
oh my, it was such clarity, and the clouds were there, but they weren't like this menacing, swirling thing, you know. It was just
It was
peace.
completely calm and that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, always, yeah, and it was a big center.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you could have put a lot of planes and towns in that center. Yeah, it was just delightful, and I thought, how interesting. I'm checking in on the status of Dorian, and that's what I'm given.
That makes sense. I believe it. Of course.
All right, so it's there, right? The peace of your soul is nearest. We have only to look away from the turmoil. If we are steadfast in standing by that central spark, the I of it, the I am of it, the I am that never dies within us, fear will take flight. Thou shalt not fear is prophecy, not command. And one of the things that I noticed is everywhere in both the Old and the New Testament, and to some extent in Quran, the angels come and their first words are fear not.
That's right.
Don't fear, don't be afraid. Yeah. Now, there was a very interesting video someone sent me to look at yesterday, and I got partway through it. And if you're interested, I'll put it up where you guys can get at it. It's a YouTube, and this guy is saying that portrayals of seraphim as spinning red, light-filled beings that sometimes have a human face can be found in every culture. And they are often rainbow colored, and they're often serpent-like. So he's saying the rainbow serpent, well, that's Quetzalcoatl. And so on. And he's suggesting that what are called seraphim are present in everything, and that Jesus is sometimes portrayed as one of them. And that's really what caught his attention. And it was fascinating to see that. And where I'm going is, this idea that thou shalt not fear. If I saw this huge red spinning thing coming at me, I'm not sure I could automatically go to hi.
Welcome.
And it helped me, you know, and I thought of all the UFO things that were a big red spinning thing. And my favorite one is when there was a problem going on at one of the silos. Did you hear about the missile silos? It was in the 70s. And they were having some problems, and it looked like they were going into releasing the missiles. And these big red things showed up the gates, and everything shut down. It's just big red balls of light. And I thought, oh, isn't that fun? He didn't have that story in his video. Yeah, and several of the Navy, underwater ones, they're just big balls of red light. So the guy, I did get as far in the video where he said, I did this presentation out, that place in Eastern Washington, Mount Scott. There's a guy out there that has UFO. People come and watch UFOs out there all the time. All the time. So he just completed the presentation. And the guy said, well, we're going to see one tonight. And they walked out, and yep, a big orange ball is flying around outside of the building.
Wow.
Yeah, so for what that's worth. Right? Fear not. Right? Be steadfast, said Paul. Praise without ceasing was his recommendation. Praise without ceasing. So a lot of us run into some amount of frustration with people who are going, praise God, praise God, praise the Holy Spirit. And you're going, yeah, and, right? But they're really trying to do this. They're trying to be in this mode where they can feel that energy flowing through and transforming their circumstances. They don't have this whole body of material, but they have been taught that's how you do it, and they've seen great grandma do it, and so they're doing it, right? And I have seen people get very, very fine effects with this. So Emily Cady, who was a physician in New York, who studied with Emma back about 1910, maybe a little earlier than that, 1890. Anyway, she, in that period between 1890 and 1910, she talks in one of her books of having, gone out for a walk and feeling disconnected and being drawn against her will into a revival tent. Right? And she's not real happy with a lot of what she's seeing there, but she's drawn to this woman over in the corner who can't, isn't, her English is definitely not, her normal way of thinking, definitely not the kind of English that, H. Emily Cady of upstate New York, whose neighbor was a doctor and who was a physician, nothing like her. And, her pictures are quite proper. And you can see the pursed lips, she's been a schoolmarm. Anyway, this woman was sitting there and she was saying, I don't know much, but I know I love Christ. And I know when I love Christ, all my world is just fine, And Emily makes the comment, that woman spoke truth more profoundly than almost any other person I've ever heard.
Wow.
Whatever that is. That brought something up for you.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm just going through a lot in this session because there's this thing that is just manifesting in my mind, and it's just saying, yeah, but you're not going to be able to control your own mom, like on this trip, because she's become like a demon, and she just embodies negativity and evil. I mean, I'm just being honest, right?
I understand. And that's been your experience in the past.
It has. So
I got that. I got that.
And I'm in charge of making sure that she, behaves and gets cleaned up for the wedding. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but
I got it. So let me tell you a story. I was called one time to rent a room in a town where I was working on affordable housing. I think this is very interesting. The whole company is working on affordable housing for the poor, but everyone who works there is renting a room.
what?
That's another story.
Okay.
Anyway, I was called to rent this room, and and the environment was relatively familiar. It was like a 1960s college professor's environment, so I was very comfortable in that because that's kind of the world I grew up in. And so I accepted that, and the woman was, a very diminutive woman with white hair. And she walked kind of stooped, and you would have thought she was like 80. Turns out she was about 50.
Wow.
Yeah, right? I didn't know that for a lot of years later. And anyway, and she answers the phone. Hello? I'm standing outside in a phone booth with a full moon. Hello? It was quite an experience. So as the weeks unfolded, it became clear that her children wanted nothing to do with her. She was a witch. They didn't trust her. She wasn't a Wiccan or anything, but they didn't want anything to do with her. She was everything you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was renting a room from her. But I didn't have that experience because, of
Right.
course, I wouldn't have that experience. And so she started to cry one night because the kids would have nothing to do with her. And she started telling me what she had accused them of, like killing their little sister.
Oops.
Yeah. And so we worked through this. And I suggested that she might consider not replaying that tape in her head anymore, and that she might consider remembering all the wonderful things and experiences she and the kids had had. And just think about those. Not think about the daughter who had passed away and whether the boys were involved in that or anything. Just think about the picnics, the sports events, the whatevers that they had had. And she agreed to do that, and a number of other important things happened in her life over the next few weeks. But then one day I came home and she said, I finally was brave enough to pull down the box of family photographs. And she said, I was so terrified. because I was sure it was going to be all this pain and agony and all this. And she said, I opened it up and it was filled with smiling, happy moments. And we're getting there. We're getting there. And so this is long before I started teaching this stuff, by the way. So then, you know, we continued to work on that and on seeing that unfold and whatever. And I had to be called away for a few weeks, and I came back, and she was, you know, saying, I wrote a letter to each of the kids, and I, you know, I told them that I love them. And she said, and they wrote back. Right? And then a few weeks later, she said, you won't believe this. One of them's getting married, and I've been invited to the wedding. Right? And I mean, she had just gotten to the point where she could see them as these whole wonderful beings, and they could see her as not someone to be terrified of, right? So I had the joy and honor of helping her choose her dress and her shoes and her, you know, and they sent her a corsage to wear, and oh, it was just gorgeous. She looked radiant, and she went down, and they gave her a hotel room, and the wedding happened. And, you know, she was standing up straight, you know, and she was just, and the wedding happened, and the younger brother was there, and the younger brother hadn't seen and hadn't wanted and all of that. And he invited her to come meet his girlfriend. And she came back to me, and what do I do, what you've been doing, see them as whole and well. So we went on from there. When the first baby was born, she was invited to be part of it. She has been invited to be part of everything. It's a complete turnaround in relationship. And it was such an honor to be able to be part of that and to see that and know that happening. So this is what I would strongly suggest. I know you only have a little time now, but what would happen if you could make a list and focus on any positive moments you have ever had with this woman?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And see that as being the norm, okay? This was part of the turnaround with my mother, too. Yeah, I had to go from all the awful experiences to, oh, yeah, that was a nice one. Oh, that was a good one, right? That was a good experience. So I started telling myself and seeing those good experiences, and then I could start looking at how I was raised from the perspective of, well, who I am now wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't had that and that and that and that, you know, and I could begin to shift from this one story that had been my experience to a very different kind of story. So that's the kind of thing we can do by this, okay? We recognize that if I can look at this situation, if I can learn to look at this situation through the eyes of joy and appreciation, then it all begins to shift. It's not going to be what it was, and we have to be willing to let go of what it was in order for it to shift, okay? So we can't have the same experience plans, okay? I don't know quite how to say that. We can't expect something to be the way it was and still do this, can we? We have to go into the situation expecting, we don't know what. Yeah, expecting love and joy in whatever form it's going to be. So I think what I've been feeling is all of us doing a treatment around that mother, right? That we are all seeing that light spark in her and that falling away of the belief that the only way she could be safe in the world is this other behavior. Because that's what was going on. She was doing that out of fear. So we need to see that fall away, and we need to know that all those times when she was loving and present is who she really is and how she can be as things unfold, as this family begins to move on to the next level. Yes? And we'll do more of that as we go forward. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. All right. Be steadfast. Praise without ceasing. All right? And then the last paragraph. All metaphysicians who've been strong and steadfast have seen everything change around them simply because they've so entirely changed their thoughts. Immanuel Kant says you can transform the world and never leave your room. Okay. I have a
she's an Al-Anon sponsor, and she says, "You're not even the same person." She said, "There's nothing about you that's the same you used to be."
Woohoo!
Wow.
Congratulations.
Done on purpose.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so the next couple of paragraphs are about doubts. Yeah, and she says you can't help but notice how chilling and depressing doubt can be. Yeah, it may come up and shake you, that. And there's all kinds of ways you can talk about the doubt, but I'm going to go down to the middle of the page. But choosing faith is not pretending that what distresses you must somehow be good.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Or in the middle of
Don't
148. Right, don't settle, that's marvelous. Yeah, the idea that I'm in this distressing situation because it's good for me.
No.
What?
That's that old punishment thing.
That's right, Alice Miller, for your own good, right?
Yeah.
No, and next sentence, that's a misunderstanding that too many students of metaphysics get caught in. And I hear it often in unity churches, unfortunately. Well, it's all in divine order. I don't like it, but it's all in divine order. No, if it were in divine order, you would love it.
Thank you.
All right, and it's just simply, there isn't this depth of teaching, available to everyone. Next sentence, this science does not say that death is good. It says there is no death. It does not say that poverty is good. It says there is no poverty. As spirit cannot be poor, I cannot be poor. As spirit cannot be sick, I cannot be sick. Remember that one? All right. This science does not say that changing ugly conditions is good. It's saying only good conditions are real. Such attempts to make misery and death and poverty good turn the principle upside down. They do not exist. They are not real, so how can they be good? Right on. That which is present is by definition good, because good is omnipresent.
And there is no mixture.
Right on. And we're actually going to be saying that here soon. Right? So if any situation seems to distress, there's no point in trying to find the good in it. All right? If you tell me that your husband was such and such, your money was such and such, or your children were so and so, and you cannot say they are good conditions, then you have arrived at this important lesson on your journey. In the italics, you must not think of a single one of these appearances. They are not there at all. Where you thought they were, God is the only reality. If, as your earth comes unglued, you see only disheartening circumstances, you will find it most comforting to say, I do not believe in the power of even a whole army of evil conditions. I believe God, all-powerful, is bringing all through safely. Okay? And then various and sundry and other things. So this is the profound negation of the belief, not the appearance, right? All right. As we move forth, we're going into time.
Time.
Yes, time.
Time.
You have to
Gotta
leave.
go.
All right.
Time has come.
Yes. Chances are that any doubt and fear you feel is not so much a doubt of the good as fear that the good won't work now. Okay? Our culture teaches that the good lets evil run on so long, and the multitudes of good people pass away before their good deeds are respected. Right? You got to die before your art's worth anything. You got to die before you're called a saint. Right?
No fair.
Yeah. Right on. So many of us have the sneaking feeling, what good will it do if our wrongs are not set right at this very moment? Come, face up to this adversary. Its name is a belief in time, that it takes time for the good to work, that God takes a long time to work out our cause for us. What can I expect but the passage of time if I believe in it? All right? Yes! Right. What can I expect but fear if I believe in fear? All these things are my own imagination. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
All right,
Good to
oh,
see you.
next week, we have to be in the Bromley Room in the library, the Coos Bay Library.
No, not the Coos Bay.
I'm sorry,
Florence.
Florence Library, forgive me. The Florence Library, which is on 8th Street? No, 9th Street,
Ninth.
on
Yeah,
9th
it's on
Street,
9th
just a
Street.
block or two off of 101.
Block of two.
Okay.
It's one block.
Because this room is
West,
going to be
west,
all garage
of
sale.
101.
Meet in the parking lot at 4:45 if you're coming down, okay?
Okay.
I mean, at 2:45. 2:45. I'm doing real well. Next week,
No such thing as time.
Florence Library. If you don't know how to get there, meet in the parking lot at 2:45 and we'll carpool. This parking lot. Thank
If
you.
you stay here, you will be setting up a rummage sale.
Thank you, dear. All right.
And I won't be in the Bronx. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, because you'll be setting up the garage sale.
I will.
All right.
And it'll be a good sale.
It'll be great. Wonderful.
You can have me for every other hour but the 2 hours I have to.
Thank
Yeah, exactly. Thank you,
Tell me
dear.
what I missed.
Yeah. All right, next page. Experiencing joy and peace. All the lessons of metaphysical science turn us toward joy and peace. Jesus, the master metaphysician, was so cheerful and joyous that he was called a glutton and winebibber.
Where are you?
Experiencing joy and peace.
Oh, right there, okay.
All right. I love it. He was so full of confidence in the good of all people that the pious ones were distressed in his association with people of bad reputation,
Oh, wow.
etc. The next paragraph, whoever follows this science soon discovers that something about himself is healed, even as he or she works to heal others. You'll find that even now you can point to ways that you are better for having studied this science. So the 10th lesson down the page, you are a transcendent being with transcendent powers. You were born of God, you go toward God, you know God, you have the power of God. It's the same with any case that comes to you. He or she is a transcendent being coming into your sight. It's the same with your circumstances. They are paradise come into view. Yeah. Apparent evil is always just a signal to welcome the spirit, to see as God sees, and step into a higher truth.
Wow.
Yeah. And she gives more specifics, examples, and what to do's. I'm going to go down to almost the bottom of 151 in the italics. The truth is that all creatures of the earth are obedient records of your conscious calling of their true names. And as you master this artful science, you'll find the secret selves of every creature and make them speak. Okay.
So what is that really saying?
So, when you are in this place of knowing the interconnectedness and the godness of all beings, then if a wasp is coming toward you, you'll see God, and you and God will commune, and the wasp will go about doing whatever it's doing.
Is this like when I talked to the murder of crows?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, right.
It's like when I saw the otters again on my dock this morning.
Yay, right.
I know the world is good.
You're right. And in her case, the crows stopped destroying her plants because she spoke to their beingness, not to the appearance of the behaviors. Yes. And we do this with kids.
Right.
We do this with kids, you know, if you've got a 2 or 4-year-old and you can get to the heart connection, you know, or a 7, 8-year-old or a 13, 15-year-old when they're in those, you know, transitional times, you can feel that and they can, yeah, and the two of you can know and no issues come up between you, right? And that's part of why grandparents get along with the kids better because grandparents generally are able to do that.
Being way beyond all the other stuff.
Right, exactly. All right. So, and the second paragraph of 151, whenever such seemingly evil conditions appear, we don't have to do anything about them, only to feel the presence of God above them, and soon around them and through them as well. Okay? And then she gives the example of a kid being sick. It's not diphtheria at all, but a signal to you that by the right words now spoken, you can bring forth a perfect character, renewed intelligence, and beautiful health into your world. Okay, so I do not believe in any illness. I do not believe in any of this stuff. So often, as I said, sometimes these circumstances that seem so, whatever, are an opportunity. It's spirit saying, here's an opportunity for you to be who you really are and to use the gift you are and all of that. And that's where we go. All right. Going on to 152. This is fun. The more often we bring order out of such chaos, ignoring such apparently mixed up states of affairs, the more we build our effectiveness in the science. Remember what I talked about, the loop. We come around and everything seems to be going into chaos because the system that was in place can no longer exist in this environment. All right, so when we focus on the highest, we focus on the spirit presence, we focus on the light, whatever, it is coming through, and then the chaos dissolves, literally dissolves around us. Okay, the second paragraph in there, there's stand still and hold on to a principle when another statement seems to control the situation is to become a skillful artist approved by heaven. The woman who's on the point of bankruptcy and saves herself by the science touches this lesson and proves her effectiveness with the science. The man whose eyesight seems to fail and, though his treatments only seem to put him into deeper darkness, holds on to one principle until it pulls him into light, sees that everything will yield and difficulties never dawn. So, and remembering back at lesson 4 and lesson 7, all methods are the same. It doesn't, whatever we need to feel, the circumstances are shifted, that's what we get. We get that experience.
Going back to the beginning conversation we had when class started today, being in situations where everybody around you is ain't it awful? And you're constantly finding that positive thing to focus on, and then somebody says, you just don't understand.
You say, yes.
Actually, sadly, I do understand, but you don't want to hear it. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get where you're being there, and it's particularly difficult when you're in a group of people who believe they are truth students. They believe they are, good people doing good things in the world, and they're not hearing, they're not aware that what they are thinking and saying can be, causing them from having that wonderful stuff happen. So there is a technique that actually comes out of a variety of places, but one of the places, well, I won't talk about where it comes from. So the idea is when there is distress, discord in interactions, like it's a baby is crying or everyone's shouting or you're in a restaurant, it's just too loud. If you can imagine a silver rose, a bud, blossoming, and just feel and imagine that happening. It may take anywhere from 10 to 40 seconds to feel that happening. Generally, peace descends on the space.
That's very Sufi.
A silver rose. Now, how did that come up? Like, interesting.
Well, as she said, it's very Sufi.
Okay.
It's taught in NLP, it's taught in Scientology, it's taught in 4 or 5 other places that I've had access to. You are focusing on the most beautiful experience, and you're bringing visual and sensation to it and all of that, and your focus is literally lifting the energy of the space into a higher level of function. And generally the room will just calm right down and you can have your dinner in peace. Yeah.
Trixie does this when class that she's teaching starts to get out of control.
She uses that one? Good for her. All right. The last paragraph in that section before guidelines, the world is obedient to your confidence, your faith, and your steadfast ignoring of any doubts or fears or appearances. So when truth goes singing over your thoughts, there is nothing to fear, no pain, and no sorrow. Okay? For truth doesn't concern itself with any such illusory things. So let's look at the guidelines. Nothing can push your patient's cure out of your sight but your own doubts and fears. That's it. Your own fear that you can't do it, your own doubt that you're able to do it, your own doubt that anything like this really works, etc. So if you're dealing with that, she says, if you're remembering how sick your patient looks, you must turn that memory right around by looking at a picture of some lofty being. Okay, this is like the silver rose, right? All right, or speaking lofty principles over and over. For your memory of how your patient seemed while sick will bring that back into your experience. So what I've been doing with this gal in Coos Bay is I've been, whenever I am seeing her, she is reaching out her left hand to see me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what's happening as I say, and that came involuntarily. I did not invent that. Okay,
That's the paralyzed side.
Right, you got it. That's the side that has been diagnosed that way. So, all right. Now, this is where you must state your belief, your principle working in its own way. There can be nothing working against principle. So again, choose faith. We're choosing the principle instead of the appearances. The appearances can't be real, so we're choosing the principle. Whatever version of the principle you can latch onto in the moment, okay? Life is what's real here. Love is what's real here. Light is what is flowing here. The only way this can be unfolding is in peace and harmony and beauty, all right? Whatever you can latch onto in that moment, choose it. Repeat it over and over again. If you have to, allow yourself to bring as many senses to that principle as you can, okay? The visualizing of the rose is a way to do that. There are other ways to do that, and seeing my friend reach out to me with both, able to do both, but especially with their left side, is a way to do that, isn't it? So as we move forward in any circumstance that doesn't feel heavenly, we get to say, I don't believe anything that could prevent me from experiencing heaven right now. And as she pointed out, and I thought it was on this page, but it isn't. Oh, there it is. It's the very last words on the next page. So the other piece I want to point out, though, as we go, the bottom line on this page was, I believe only in the good. And on the next page, your fear need not be of your patient's sickness or even that you will fail, but you could be afraid your family's affairs won't come out right. Yeah, and it'll be enough to bring a condition back for the fourth time. Isn't that interesting? So
Any doubt.
any doubt or fear about anything is what blocks the flow, and it makes sense. If I have any fear about anything, the flow isn't happening, and the unique being that I am creating this paradisical world isn't quite going to be paradise because there's some fear or doubt there. Right? Excellent. So it shows the paragraph, the next one, if the patient ... It shows that you have been disturbed about whether good or evil is more powerful in the world when someone calls you a fourth time. Isn't that interesting? And we have had that issue in this country for quite a while now. So then the first thing, the last paragraph of that, well, the first thing to do is to bow the head and let the Spirit speak of confidence, faith, and steadfastness. You've come to Paul's middle wall of partition, the partition between what the Spirit wills and what the flesh chooses, okay? Where you must let the Spirit speak through you, reminding you the truth of your principle. Let's do this italics together. I do not believe in mixtures of good and evil. I do not believe in failure. I believe only in success. Right on. All right. So this is Thursday afternoon's practice. And that is today.
How appropriate.
Yes, I love it when it works. All right. So there's actually two parts. One is the establishment of yourself in the healing mode, and then the next is with the person that is coming to you, the fourth time. And so this mixture of good and evil is the essence of this one. If we think about lesson 7, It was, I don't accuse you of having any, lust or attachment or anything. And we think about lesson 8, I'm not deceived into believing you possibly had any of that, right? And in lesson 9, it's, there are no accusations, judgments, or condemnations of you anywhere. And then this is, there is no mixture. It can only be good. It can only be good. Okay? So this is the treatment. And if you will take Thursday afternoons in that second paragraph and say all that Spirit does not believe and all that the Spirit does believe, you will not have a long treatment. Right? Because you're spending time being in that space of realizing, wow, there's no way the Spirit's going to accuse or condemn anyone, so the Spirit must not believe in any of that stuff, therefore the Spirit believes in this, right? And you're feeling that and knowing that, and as you do that, you can accept these words and see how there is a negation and an affirmation in the same sentence. And does that work for you, Larry, based on what you were saying? Good. So, I don't do that, but I do this. There is no reality in this. It's all this. There's nothing there. This is all that is. That's the structure of it, right? Do we want to read that part together? Sure. All right. I have not believed in a mixture of good and evil. I do not believe in evil of any kind. I believe that all is good. There is no reality in trouble. All is peace. There is no reality in sickness. All is perfect health. I do not believe in anything wrong. I believe all is well. And say it until you believe it. All right, I know in that moment we always can have a flash of, oh yes, in it, and then sometimes that disappears quickly, so we repeat it until we can sustain it. Okay, so do you want to do this treatment? We've got 5 minutes. All right, so with the returning client, okay, anybody that's come into your awareness for more than 3 times particularly. All right.
Is this something that we can do with Liz's mom in mind? Or?
I thought about that, if you're up for that. Okay, so we can
Totally.
all. So how about? Okay. So here's my suggestion. There's no reason you can't have both of them there in there. So if there is someone that you've been thinking about, have them there, and also include this being right next to her, him, her, whoever that is Liz's mom. And it doesn't matter whether you see details or not, that's fine. Just know that Liz's mom is there too. And do you want a first name would help?
Maggie.
Maggie, all right. All right. So Maggie and whoever. Feel that and let that spiritual knowing, that Christ center, that core center, that Om beingness of you, the Brahman, Atman of you, know the truth and speak it through you, and we will use these words as a vehicle for that truth. There is no mixture of good and evil in you. All is good. I don't believe in inheritance of any kind of sickness, disease, or pain. I believe in the inheritance of God's good only. I don't believe in a humanity that is partly good and partly evil. I believe in the universality of good. I don't believe in contagion by the mixed thoughts of people around us. I believe in their good mind only. I don't believe in any evil thoughts in your mind. Your mind is good. I don't believe in any errors in you or me. Such do not exist. All is good. You are entirely whole and experience only well-being. Your life is God. It can't be threatened with disease, nor fear disease, nor yield to disease in any part of your being. Your strength is God. It can't be threatened with weakness, nor fear weakness, nor yield to weakness in any part of your being. You are demonstrating to the people around you that you are healed. You acknowledge to yourself that you are healed. You acknowledge to me that you are healed. In the name of the Father, Mother Almighty, the miracle-working air, and the mystical holy breath of Spirit present, I now pronounce you healed forever and ever, for it is so. All right. So see that good coming out. And when more often you do this, the more powerful your understanding of it will be. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, 10 is the number of the light in the metaphors, giving birth to everything. 10 is the number of the memra, the mystics, the secret word of the mystic self. That's what memra means. It's like meme. The mental version of a gene is a meme. And it's unfortunate that Facebook adopted it. But yeah, so the mental version of a gene is a meme, and a memra is a complex of memes in that hidden secret self. 10 is the I am. Aristotle found there are 10 ideas in the world, 10 numbers. All the religions of the world are but variations of 10 ideas. The next paragraph, with 10 words was the world built in the Zoroastrian Zendavesta. In the ancient Hebrews, the 10th letter, Yod, is key to the divine language. Yod, He, Vod, He, Yod. 10 is the fulfillment, the completion. 10 is the rose of the world, the Sephiroth, and there's that rose again. Come into bloom. It is the number of empowerment, the great resurrection, calling our attention to our native majesty. By the law of 10, we take back the lordship that we had given to all those other things. All right. So the stone, the chrysoprasus, it's a variety of chalcedony, and other people call it different names. Do you have a different name for it, pronunciation?
No.
Okay. I've heard it chrysoprasus.
Oh.
Yeah, so apple green. It's a beautiful, beautiful stone, a color that stands for the true earth, the heavenly city, in Jerusalem, the holy bride. All right, and the chrysoprasus, or the chrysoprasus, stands for dauntlessness, understandings, how to handle things without effort. That would be a wonderful stone for all of us to have.
I want one of those right now.
Yes. All
It's a
right.
picture that we have it.
Yeah, we have it. It's about that big. Right. John is the English translation of the Greek Ioannis. I is used instead of J in the Greek. Yeah. So Jesu, Ioannis, which is translated from Yachanan in Hebrew, meaning favored by Jehovah. Yah always indicates Jehovah, Yah, or received by Jehovah. John is the assumed author of the Gospel of John, which is the most mystical account of the life and teachings. Opening in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word was made flesh, is the next line. Tradition says that he is also the author of the book of Revelation, the final vision of the Bible written on the island of Patmos around 90 CE. But most scholars agree that the language and style are a different writer, probably someone in the school of John. That was common. If you had a bunch of followers and they were writing, then they would call themselves Johannans. John's associated with the base chakra above the navel, which in Asia is the chi point, where universal energy enters the body and moves through. And the beatitude is, rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward. And there it is.
So it is.
Woohoo! Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
So glad we got to do this work together.